Hello everyone, Ron here from L.T.L Tutoring Central, and this week I'm talking about don't be too helpful. Yes, this is another in the series of how can I help my child succeed, and it might sound counterintuitive to say don't be too helpful, but it's true. Sometimes as parents, even as teachers and tutors, we can jump in when we really shouldn't. You need to allow the learner some space and some time to discover the answers by himself or herself. So when you're helping your child, maybe in the beginning it's necessary to walk him or her all the way through the steps to the final answer, and even sometimes give the final answer, so that your children can see how to approach the question and why that kind of answer works. But as you progress, you want to allow them the opportunity to work through entire questions on their own. So, for example, if you are studying basic addition, you want to help Johnny or Sally learn that 5 plus 5 is 10 and 8 plus 6 is 14, etc. And you show them how to do that, and depending on their age or grade, you'll do that using different methods. But then you need to step back and allow them to complete some tasks on their own all the way through. And that might require watching them do it wrong. It does require watching them do it wrong. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to fall down. But the idea is that making mistakes is fine. This is the practice session. This is the learning process. You make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, you work backwards sometimes, you find a new method or a new approach if necessary, but that's part of the process. And without that process, the learner really hasn't learned very much, and he or she doesn't have the foundation that you need moving forward. So you don't want to take that away from your child or your children. You want to allow them to explore and to find answers, because then they will remember it. They'll retain that information a lot longer because their brain has had to work through it. It's had to wire itself in a way that gets them to the answer. And then when they try again, it will be a little easier. They might make a little mistake, but not as many as before. And then when they try it again, it will be even easier. Those pathways in the brain will become stronger and quicker, and they will retain that information for tests, for quizzes, and even for years to follow, which in many cases you still need that core information. And it isn't just for mathematics. It can be, obviously, for any math unit, but also learning anything but science terms and definitions, for example, preparing for a geography test or quiz. Any course, anything you're trying to learn, you need, and your child needs, some space and some exploration so that they actually wire their brains and get themselves prepared to build a foundation for themselves, not just sitting on someone else's foundation. So if you're giving them the answers, or if you're giving them too many hints or too many clues, so this is the next step, and this is the next step, and this is the next step, they haven't done anything on their own. They haven't got to that answer by themselves yet. Now, if you do that in the beginning, as I say, that's fine, but then walk away. Leave that learning space. Remember I believe it was the first video in this series was the learning space. Walk away from it. Allow them some time to do the work by themselves. Teachers and tutors need to do this as well. If you have a tutor, that tutor should not be giving the child all the answers. He or she should be leading them to the answers. You can use questions to lead them toward the right process or the right steps to get to the answer. You can give them hints during the learning process as well. But as I say, before you're finished, you want to make sure that they can do it all on their own, independently. Teachers and tutors and even parents, you should be pushing to have an independent learner, not a dependent learner. Some parents are even reluctant to hire a tutor because they're afraid their child will become dependent on the tutor. I'm getting my terms mixed up in my mind here. And you don't want them to be dependent. My job as a tutor is to help your child be independent, to be able to learn on his or her own, to be able to make progress without someone constantly looking over his shoulder and telling her what to do. And I know I've interchanged pronouns here, but don't worry about that. You know what I'm talking about. So I want you to help your child, of course, but just don't be too helpful, because I have had parents who've read the novels that the child is supposed to be writing about. The child hasn't even read the novel. And then the parent has written the rough draft, and then the parent has edited the final draft. Well, this student is no longer ready to write an essay for high school, for example, if there's an in-class exam, because he or she hasn't practiced it yet. He or she hasn't done it. Mom should be getting the grade, or dad should be getting the grade, not the child. So you don't want to go there. You don't want to be so helpful that you've taken the education away from your child. You want to be giving education to your child. And part of that means that the children have to work at it, they have to work for it, they have to fail, they have to fall down, they have to get up, and they have to go at it again. And learning that you're not always going to be an A student, you're not always going to do well, and you don't always know the answer, that's okay too. That's fine. That's a good learning experience, because then they realize that in order for me to really accomplish something, I have to work at it, and then the reward is even greater. So take a step back. Don't jump in all the time. I know it's hard not to jump in when you see your children struggling, but let them struggle for a while. Of course, eventually, if they really need help, you need to come in and give them that assistance. But you need to allow them time to work it out for themselves. So that's my main message in this video today, is help, but don't be too helpful. Be willing to allow them to fail. I don't mean the whole year or the whole course, but on practice sessions when they're working things out. And sometimes, you know what? It's even okay if they fail at a small quiz or a test at school. If they haven't done the work, then they should fail, and they should have to look back at that and say, what did I do wrong? What do I need to do moving forward? Because it isn't mom's education, it isn't dad's education, although we all learn by helping our children, but it is really the child's education, and he or she needs to step up to the plate and do that work to get where they need to go and where they will eventually want to go, although they might not want to at every step. I realize that. If you need extra help, get in touch. Check out the website. I'll put a link below. You can leave comments or ask questions on this video if you're watching it on YouTube or in other places where they have a comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video. I hope you like the video. Check out some of the other videos, particularly the last few that I've been making in this series on how to help my child succeed. In the meantime, I wish you a very good week, and I'll talk to you again next week. It's Ron from L.T.L. Tutoring. Bye for now.